On the 23rd of February 1944, Stalin began the deportation of part of the population of the North Caucasus. The victims were to be the Ingush and Chechen peoples. Like Hitler, Stalin felt that he had the resources to divert from the front in order to meet his own racist fantasies, using the excuse of the disloyalty of the entire population. Whereas it goes without saying there may have been one or two individuals who had collaborated with the Nazis in 1942. It's not the entire population that was collaborating with them. Even if this had been the case, then this would have happened 18 months previously or thereabouts. This was a major mass deportation at a time when the front could have been pushed further westwards. The deportation required 100,000 troops and 19,000 officers. In a somewhat reminiscent way of the Glencoe massacre, which had taken place in the United Kingdom in 1692, the troops had been garrisoned with families, and in every village, under the pretense that they were carrying out a military exercise, as guests they were treated to traditional hospitality. The date chosen was Red Army Day, and the idea was to mark this day everywhere with special festive rallies. All the men were obliged to take part, and as they had no suspicions of what was about to happen, they turned up unarmed and in their Sunday best. They were loaded directly onto trucks and taken to the stations, while their families were chased from their homes and to the stations as well. According to the NKVD, around 7,200 people were murdered during the deportation. People, for example, who were killed immediately were those who were resisted arrest or were bed-ridden. The same sort of people who were killed by the SS when they were rounding up Jews to take them to the death camps. The journey from the North Caucasus may have lasted many days, and obviously the cattle wagons used were unheated. As a result, many people died and their bodies were just tossed out of the wagons. Like all deportees before them, once they arrived in eastern Kazakhstan and Siberia, they had to build their own shelters and find their own food. Not really possible in winter. The result would clearly be the deaths of many on an enormous scale. Of the 550,000 people who were deported, NKVD reports suggest that 260,000 people perished. That is to say, nearly half of them. However, not all of them were given the opportunity to be deported. Beria had set a very strict timetable, and the train lines in this region of the Soviet Union were not particularly dense. For example, in a mountain village called Kaibak in Chechnya, there were 700 people. These 700 people were forced into a stable, and there they were burned alive. Lieutenant Colonel Kviashany, the person responsible, explained his action to Lavrenti Beria as being necessary due to the lack of transportation. And he quoted the time schedule which Beria himself had allowed. Beria rewarded him with promotion. Like the way the Nazis treated the Jews, the Soviet Union used the gravestones of the Chechens as building materials. Those Chechens who survived began to return to their villages in the mid-1950s. The result of this is, of course, today the creation of strong Chechen identity and nationalism. And in some cases, this is built around militant Islam, and indeed that has brought quite a lot of problems for Russia. But what about Lieutenant Colonel Gviershani? What happened to him after he murdered these 700 people? That, I think, is the subject for a different video. Thanks for listening, and if you're interested, please subscribe.